The final day of the school year has a unique kind of stillness to it. There are no more exams to worry about. No looming deadlines, just the echoes of laughter and the sound of desks and chairs sliding across the floor as classrooms are cleaned out one last time. It's a day for goodbyes and yearbook signings. But for some, it marks an ending they never anticipated. These are three disturbing, allegedly true stories from students in Vietnam who experienced something deeply unsettling on their last day of school. Our first story comes from Phan Dai, a 12th grade student from Binh Duong, who says his final day of school in 2021 was haunted by a memory that he still refuses to speak about after dark. There had once been a girl in his class named Ngoc An. She was a quiet, diligent student who tragically passed away in a traffic accident exactly 1 year before the end-of-year ceremony. Ngoc An was known for her dedication to the classroom. She was always the first to arrive and the very last to leave, often staying behind to erase the chalkboard or neatly rearrange the chairs. Even when no one asked her to, it was simply who she was. After her death, however, a strange whisper began to circulate among the students. They claimed that in the final, quiet days of the school year, when the classrooms were emptying out, a lone figure could be seen sitting at the very last desk in the back row. Her head was always down, her face obscured, and she never looked up. No one ever dared to approach the figure or confirm who or what it was. The story remained a chilling piece of school lore, a ghost story told in hushed tones, until the final day of Dai's senior year, and he became the one who saw her. That afternoon, his class had just finished their yearbook photo shoot. A wave of excitement and relief washed over everyone, and the classroom emptied out faster than usual. Dai, however, stayed behind to gather his belongings, wanting to savor the last few moments in the room that had been his second home for a year. The air inside was hot and heavy, and the silence was unnerving. The only sound was the rhythmic, tired creak of the old ceiling fan as it spun in slow, lazy circles above him. As Dai reached for the light switch, ready to leave the room in darkness for the summer, he heard a distinct sound from the back of the class. It was the soft but unmistakable scrape of a chair sliding against the tiled floor. Asterisk square. Asterisk, the noise cut through the silence, sharp and clear. He figured one of his friends had come back for something they'd forgotten. "Hello," he called out, his voice echoing in the empty space. "Is anyone still here?" The silence that answered him was absolute. There was no reply, not even a shuffle of feet. Feeling a prickle of unease, Dai pulled out his phone and switched on the flashlight, casting a narrow beam of light toward the back of the room. His breath caught in his throat. The chair at desk number 45 in Ngoc An's old seat was pulled out from under the desk, as if someone had just been sitting there. A cold dread began to creep up his spine. He took a slow, hesitant step forward, then another, his heart pounding against his ribs. He reached the desk and stretched out a trembling hand, intending to just push the chair back in and leave. But just as his fingers brushed against the cool wood of the chair, a girl's whisper materialized directly behind his ear, so close he could feel the phantom breath on his neck. "Don't turn off the lights," it said, the voice laced with a quiet sadness. "It's the last day. Let me stay a little longer." Panic seized him. Dai spun around in a blur, his eyes wide with terror, expecting to see someone standing there. But there was no one. The space behind him was completely empty. In that same instant, the chair he had been about to touch scraped violently across the floor. A loud, jarring sound as if someone had just thrown their weight into it. He didn't wait for another sound. He ran. He bolted out of the classroom, not bothering to turn off the lights. leaving the door wide open in his frantic escape. That night, the school's security guard filed a strange report. He noted that the lights in classroom 1-A1 remained on until 3 a.m. More chillingly, he claimed that the hallway security cameras captured the faint, unmoving silhouette of a girl sitting at the last desk, her head bowed down, for hours on end. She never left her last day of school. Our second story takes us to a middle school in the city of Hue, and follows a 9th grade student named Leking Tan. His last day was marked not by a quiet, sorrowful presence, but by a terrifying pursuit. On the final day of the school year, after the farewell ceremony had concluded, TN stayed late to help the teachers clean up the stage and pack away props. By then, most of the students had already poured out of the school gates, their laughter and shouts fading into the distance. The school hallways, usually bustling with energy, felt unnervingly vast and empty. One particular section of the school had long been the subject of eerie rumors, the old third-floor block. Years earlier, in 2012, a male student had tragically fallen from the balcony in that very wing. Since then, janitors and security guards often reported hearing inexplicable sounds late at night, the frantic patter of running footsteps echoing down the deserted corridor when no one was supposed to be there. TN, like most students, had always dismissed these stories as nothing more than campus gossip, meant to spook the younger kids. Around 5 p.m., as dusk began to settle over the school grounds, TN was carrying a heavy box of props down from the auditorium. As he walked past the main stairwell leading up to the infamous third-floor block, a figure caught his eye, and he stopped dead in his tracks. A boy was standing on the 7th step of the staircase, perfectly still. He was wearing an old version of the school uniform, a design that hadn't been used since around 2010. But it was his face, or lack thereof, that made Teen's blood run cold. It was completely blank, a smooth, featureless surface where his eyes, nose, and mouth should have been. TN was frozen in place, a wave of primal fear washing over him. The boy on the stairs took a deliberate step up, then another. Each movement was accompanied by a hollow, distinct sound that echoed in the silent stairwell. Asterisk thock. Thock. Asterisk, it sounded like dry bones tapping against the wooden steps. TN instinctively took a step back, his mind screaming at him to run. As if sensing his fear, the boy's movements suddenly became faster, more erratic, jerky, unnatural motion, like a puppet whose strings were being pulled by an unseen hand. His joints seemed to bend at impossible angles. Terrified, TN dropped the box of props, its contents clattering loudly across the floor. He turned and sprinted toward the main schoolyard, his heart hammering in his chest. He didn't dare look back. When he finally reached the relative safety of the open courtyard, he stopped, gasping for breath. He fumbled for his phone, turning on the flashlight to scan his surroundings, trying to calm his racing pulse, and then he saw it. Standing at the far end of the first-floor hallway, shrouded in the deepening shadows, was the same boy. His head was tilted down at a strange angle, and his arms hung unnaturally low by his sides, but he was facing directly at TN. There was absolutely no way he could have gotten down from the 3rd floor and across the school that fast. The school guard, who was on duty that night, later reviewed the security footage. He reported seeing a small, distorted figure running up and down the old hallway on the recordings, over and over again. But every time he went to check the area in person, the corridor was completely empty. The next morning was the official closing ceremony, the final event of the school year, but TN refused to attend. He told his parents he would never set foot in that school or walk past that hallway again, even if it meant missing his own last day of middle school forever. Our final story comes from NGO Hyman, an 11th grade student in Kano, who experienced a different kind of terror, one that was confined to a single, locked room. On the very last day of the school year, Min's class was tasked with cleaning their classroom, room 11A3, before heading to the closing ceremony. The homeroom teacher handed Min the key, making him responsible for locking up once the job was done. There was an old, unsettling story associated with that specific room. Back in 2008, the classroom had been sealed off for several months after a teacher, who was working late, fainted from fright. She claimed she heard someone knocking insistently from inside the locked classroom, even though she was certain no one was there. The room was eventually reopened, but the strange occurrences didn't stop. Over the years, students frequently reported hearing the sound of chairs scraping across the floor in the late afternoon, long after everyone had gone home. Min had heard the stories, but he never put any stock in them. They were just stories. He wouldn't believe them for much longer. It was around 4 p.m. when his friends, having finished their share of the cleaning, headed out to the sports field to play. Min stayed behind alone to do one final check, ensuring all the windows were shut and the equipment was stored away before he locked the door. He stepped out into the hallway, pulled the heavy wooden door shut, and turned the key in the lock. As he was about to pocket the key, he felt the brass doorknob twitch in his hand, as if someone on the other side had tried to turn it. He dismissed it as a mechanical quirk. But then came a series of soft, rhythmic knocks from inside the classroom. Talk, talk, talk. He reasoned it was just the old wood of the door contracting in the afternoon heat. But a flicker of doubt made him test his theory. He lightly pushed against the door. In response, the knocking from inside repeated, matching his rhythm perfectly, as if something was consciously knocking back at him. A chill snaked down Min's spine. He hesitantly pressed his ear against the cold surface of the door, listening. This time, the soft knocks were replaced by violent, aggressive slams that vibrated through the wood. Thud, thud, thud. The force of it made him stumble back in shock and fear. Without thinking, he whispered, his voice trembling, "Is someone in there?" The answer came instantly. 3 rapid, hard knocks, right on the other side of the door where his head had just been. That was enough. Min bolted. He didn't look back as he clambered down the stairs and out of the building, the sound of the knocking echoing in his mind. Later that evening, the school supervisor called Min's teacher, demanding to know why room 11A3 had been locked from the inside. Security had been forced to pry the door open. Min swore up and down that he had locked it from the outside and had taken the one and only key with him. The supervisors were skeptical, but the hallway camera footage revealed something that defied all logical explanation. The video clearly showed Min locking the door and then running away in a panic. But moments after he disappeared from view, the camera captured the handle of room 11A3 slowly turning downward, as if being operated by someone inside. Then, just as slowly, it released. To this day, Min is convinced that classroom is never truly empty, not even on the last day of school.